Greetings in the name of the Lord. This is Jim from don'tperish.com, John 4:24 radio, bringing you truth and discernment from God's holy word. Hope you're having a really good day. We have our holy Bible right here. We've got our topic, Wretched Radio. Todd Friel, tested to God's word. Don'tperish.com is our website where we place lots of biblical information to promote the biblical gospel, to expose man-made religion, false teachers, and to lift up the true New Testament church model. Now, this testing of this ministry, Wretched Radio, Todd Friel is the host. Often is the case we're contacted by someone and asked, hey, what about this ministry? What about that ministry? Well, that happened in this case. Someone contacted us, and we were familiar with Todd Friel, so the testing wasn't really that hard. Todd runs Wretched Radio. It's a discernment ministry, and he focuses on and exposes many unbiblical issues in today's sad, lost religious world. If you go to our link at the bottom of this video, we have an article with many links, and we link right to his website so we can show you some of these things that we're talking about. But right off the bat, we will admit that Todd has a lot of good information regarding many of these false teachers out in the world, no doubt about that. Having said that, though, we need to test Todd to God's true New Testament word. And we would say that Todd, we would lovingly say, Todd needs to step back and biblically examine his own ways and those of some of the people that are his sponsors and he looks up to, lest they fall into great spiritual error, which they have done. Let me explain, okay? If we go to God's word and test Todd to the true New Testament church that Christ ordained, he and his weekly practices and his very faith fail that test. Now, to learn why, go to our don'tperish.com and look for the 10-point biblical test. This 10-point biblical test will expose what your religious body and what you do every Sunday or Wednesday versus, and what they're teaching you, versus what the true New Testament model teaches. Now, if we claim to be Christians, we should be following the true New Testament model, correct? Well, sadly, Todd and people that are sponsoring him are practicing a man-made evangelical system handed down through the centuries, and it started with the Roman Catholic pagans in many of their false ways, but it was also handed down through unbiblical men like Martin Luther at the Reformation. Go to our teaching blog or our unbiblical teachers blog, either one, and you can read articles about Martin Luther. He was a hate-filled, murderous man with many unbiblical ways. A lot of people don't know that, and they actually deny it when we tell them that truth. But anyway, it is troubling to see that Todd runs a discernment ministry. It seems rather hypocritical, but he has not taken the time to test his own ways to God's holy word in the New Testament church. So he fails many of those 10-point tests. Please go to that 10-point test and read it for yourself. Now, moving on, there's other issues. Excuse me. As we said, Todd likes to test and expose others. Has he ever tested his own unbiblical evangelical systems that he does every week, along with his sponsors, and the places he goes and does his sermons or his seminars to the true New Testament church model that Christ ordained and the Word teaches us? He hasn't done that, as we said. So that's number one. That's very important. Next, Todd supports ministries that go out and proclaim a gospel message. One of them is Tomorrow's Clubs. Sadly, they also build and practice the same building-centered, man-made type of faith that's not part of the true New Testament church at all that Christ ordained and that Paul taught. If you go to our article or to our teaching blog, you can look for an article called Building-Centered Faith is Not Biblical. And it's a rather long article. It teaches you why having a building-centered faith is not biblical, because the biblical New Testament church met in houses, and there's a theological purpose in doing that, okay? Now, Todd has deep connections with John MacArthur from Grace to You in California. Again, seemingly very hypocritically, because Todd likes to expose many modern pastors for their silly, worldly, unbiblical stunts and antics reaching out to young people. Has he ever exposed John MacArthur for his use of rappers? At his conferences, he has youth crawling around in the mud. He has them doing tug-of-wars around pig heads. They do emotional, rabid, immodest sports, yelling and screaming with their shirts off on top in this college. And the very carnal way that John runs his unbiblical college. Has that ever been on Todd's show? We've never heard of it. If he has done that show, please share it with us, and we would like to see that. But see our link on our Unbiblical Teachers blog. Go to don'tperish.com, Unbiblical Teachers blog. See the link all about John MacArthur. John MacArthur has a lot of things biblical, true. He also has a lot of error that he will not leave, and so he is a danger, okay, a very big danger in so many ways. So test that out. Todd also says he started out with Ray Comfort. Ray is still on his website, and Ray is another man who's less than biblical. He has many unbiblical issues. Go to our Unbiblical Teachers blog. We have a whole article there about him, okay? Next, I would say this one is rather interesting, and I'm going to bring you a little video clip. Todd used to be an entertainer. Let's give you a little clip of his type of entertainment, or his teaching, if we could say. See if we can zero in on this here. Bear with me. Here we go.
About this section, do you want me to? Or how's about that section? Do you want me? Am I going off script? Is that not what the guy just said? This?
I think maybe you can see the theatrics that go on with Mr. Todd Friel. He is playing to a target market audience, it appears. He aims for the young people. Fact is, he used to be a comedian. It's not hard to believe after seeing clips like that, is it? And he has an ever-changing camera angle that goes on in his show. It'll give you a headache. I don't watch his show anymore. I used to many, many years ago when I first became a believer, and I sent him an email, and I admitted I used to watch him and I learned some things from him, but then I moved on from the milk of the word to the meat of the New Testament church model. And sadly, Todd doesn't teach people that, so I've asked him to come out of that, and we'll see what he says via the email. But anyway, he plays to a youthful crowd, a college crowd. He acts often outrageous, silly, goofy, like a comedian. God's Word calls men that are teachers especially to be sober-minded. You can read about that in Titus chapter 1. I think the word that really comes up with Todd's way of teaching is drama. He likes a lot of drama, a lot of antics, emotionalism. And it's really kind of hypocritical because he blames a lot of modern pastors for using that instead of just sticking to the truth of the Word. He himself is using that type of drama. And we have to ask ourselves, do you think Paul or Jesus ever taught like that? I don't think so. I really don't think so. Moving on, Todd has a 25-question test to find if a church is a good church. Now, sadly in it, he never once asks, do you model the true New Testament church model that Christ ordained and the apostles taught? No. He talks about Sunday school. He talks about having a cross up in the building. He talks about all types of man-made denominational, evangelical, false systems that we would reject because God's Word just doesn't teach that for His true New Testament church body, all right? Now, another area that I think is very important is Todd sells the truth for money. See, you need to pay money to access his Bible teachings. The Apostle Paul worked as a tent maker or a leather worker, and he gave away the truth of God. Jesus gave away the truth of God for free. Todd Friel and so many men like him in big mainstream ministries, they charge you for it. That should really make you stop and wonder. And for a man who claims to preach a biblical gospel and wants to take the gospel message to everybody, I searched all over his website. I asked my wife to search all over the website. We could not find a clear gospel on his website. If we missed it, and if it's there, please email it to me, and I would like to see it. If we missed it, we apologize, but we could not find a gospel on his website. So, in the end, Todd can and does make money by pointing out the errors of many of today's false teachers and doing all kinds of teachings and writing books, but he can't or won't spend any time testing himself and his sponsors and look into the true New Testament church and how it's called out people in biblical true ways versus false man-made denominational practices. 2 Thess 3 tells us, Paul tells us, cling to the traditions he gave us. Todd is clinging to evangelicalism, which is a false system, and our website exposes that. So, is it too much to ask Todd to just turn those tools of discernment he uses on everyone else on his own ways? We don't think so. The truth is, if Todd began to expose evangelical religion and teach the true New Testament church model, holiness, separation from the culture, function like the true New Testament church, biblical dress, all these type of things that the Bible teaches, no, he would not be nearly so popular, and that is something we need to consider. So we've emailed Todd, as I said, and we've asked him to look at these things. He will come and speak at a engagement if he can sell his books and make money doing it. We've asked him to come talk to us for free about the truth of God's word. We'll see if he does respond or not, and we'll report back here. So this has been a testing of Wretched Radio, Todd Friel. We cannot recommend them as a true New Testament church, as a man fully in biblical truth. No, he's a compromised man. He takes truth only so far, and he practices a false model of man-made religion that we warn people of. And God's word says he opposes and he hates. Read Mark 7, where Jesus talks about false man-made traditions. So this has been Jim from don'tperish.com, John 4:24 Radio. Go to our teaching blog, go to our Unbiblical Teachers blog. The link is at the bottom of this video. And we will teach you from God's word many things you will not hear from people like Todd Friel or John MacArthur or your mainstream denominational religion, because they're preaching a popularity gospel, a popularity truth, and not the full truth of God's word. So, hope this has been an encouragement to you to cling to God's word. We're always bringing you truth and discernment, clinging to God's word, rejecting man's false ways. Until next time, hopefully I can come to you again. Have a glorious evening. May God be praised.